The galaxy had known peace for 3,000 years. The Galactic Council maintained order through diplomacy, trade agreements, and the careful balance of power between its member species. Most civilizations in the known universe came from garden worlds, planets with mild temperatures, low gravity, and gentle ecosystems. They were soft creatures, peaceful, civilized, but scattered across the spiral arms existed something different. Deathworlds, planets where survival was never guaranteed. Worlds of crushing gravity, toxic atmospheres, extreme temperatures, and predators that evolved for millions of years to become perfect killing machines. The species that crawled out of these hellish environments were rare, feared, and respected. Earth was classified as a Category 7 death world, the highest rating possible. Commander Xyrith of the Valaxian Trade Fleet had never met a human before the day everything changed. His species came from a world of floating islands and gentle winds. They were tall, thin creatures with translucent skin and eyes that could see ultraviolet light. Violence was foreign to them. They had evolved beyond such primitive needs. His ship, the Eternal Whisper, carried medical supplies to the outer colonies, 17 crew members, all civilians. They followed the established trade routes, the safe paths through space that the Council protected with sensor stations and patrol vessels. But space was vast, too vast for complete protection. The pirates found them near the Kethros Nebula, a region of space where communications became unreliable and sensors failed. 3 vessels emerged from the dust clouds. Scavengers, criminals. A mixed crew of various species who had abandoned civilization for profit. Xyrith remembered the terror that seized his bridge when the first warning shots struck their shields. His communications officer, a young female named Talith, screamed. Others fell to the floor, curling into protective positions. Their species had no fight response, only flight, and their engines were already damaged. The pirates boarded within the hour. Their leader was a massive Krovian, a species from a mid-tier death world known for their aggression and thick armored hide. He called himself Grax, and he wore the trophies of his kills around his neck, small skulls, jewelry made from the bones of his victims. Grax gathered the Valaxian crew in the cargo hold. 17 frightened souls pressed together, trembling. Xyrith tried to negotiate. He offered everything, the cargo, the ship, their personal belongings, anything. Grax laughed, a deep, rumbling sound that echoed through the metal walls. "Your cargo is already mine," the pirate said. "Your ship is mine, but my crew has been traveling for many months. They have needs, desires." The implications made Xyrith's blood run cold. That was when he noticed the 18th person in the cargo hold. She had been hiding behind a stack of medical containers, a small figure, tiny compared to the Valaxians. She could not have been more than 5 years of age by human standards. Brown hair, wide eyes filled with tears. A passenger they had picked up from Colony 7, traveling to meet her parents on the Outer Rim. Her name was Maya. One of Grax's crew spotted her. A thin, reptilian creature with too many teeth grabbed her arm and pulled her forward. Maya screamed, not a scream of fear, something different, something primal. A cry that seemed to carry the weight of every child who had ever been afraid, ever been hurt, ever needed protection. Xyrith had read about humans in the Council archives. Their planet was a nightmare of natural disasters, predators, diseases, and constant warfare. They should have been savage, brutal. Instead, they had developed something unexpected, a protective instinct so powerful it defied logic. They would die for strangers, fight impossible odds for those weaker than themselves. The human child's cry was not just a sound. It was a signal, a frequency that humans had evolved to hear across any distance, a call that demanded response. Thousands of light years away, on a human vessel called the Prometheus, Warrant Officer Sarah Chen stopped mid-sentence. The coffee cup in her hand slipped and shattered on the floor. Her eyes went wide. Her heart rate spiked. Every human on the ship felt it simultaneously. That cry, that specific frequency of terror and pain. Captain Marcus Webb stood from his command chair. He was a large man, scarred from 20 years of military service, his hands clenched into fists without conscious thought. "Source?" His voice was barely controlled. "Unknown, sir. The signal came through subspace. Child in distress. Approximately 5 years old. Location being triangulated." The Prometheus was a heavy cruiser. 60 crew members. Advanced weapons. Fast engines. But it was not enough. Marcus knew it would not be enough because he did not know what they were facing. He opened a channel to Earth Command. "This is Captain Webb of the Prometheus. We have received a child distress signal from the Kethros Nebula region, requesting immediate backup." The response came within seconds. Admiral Helena Torres appeared on screen. She was old, gray hair, hard eyes. She had fought in 3 wars and won them all. "Classification of threat?" "Unknown. Pirates, most likely. But the nebula scrambles our sensors." Admiral Torres nodded once. "All available Deathworld vessels. Priority alert. Human child in danger. Kethros Nebula. Weapons free." Marcus felt his breath catch. Weapons free. Those 2 words meant everything. No rules of engagement, no limitations, no mercy. The alert spread through human space like wildfire. Ships changed course. Crews abandoned leave. Officers called in favors. Within 1 hour, 17 human vessels were racing toward the Kethros Nebula. Battleships, carriers, attack frigates. The deadliest weapons humanity had ever built. But humans were not the only Deathworlders in the galaxy. On the Craxian homeworld, a planet of volcanic activity and acidic rain, High Commander Throck received the transmission. His species resembled walking tanks, 8 feet tall, 4 arms, natural armor plating that could stop most projectile weapons. They had conquered a dozen systems before joining the Council. Craxians had no love for humans. The 2 species had fought a brief war centuries ago, a war that ended in mutual respect when neither side could defeat the other. But there was something Craxians respected above all else: the protection of young. On their world, children were sacred. The murder of a child was punishable by genetic termination, the entire family line erased from existence. This was not cultural, it was biological, something deep in their DNA that could not be ignored. Throck watched the recording of Maya's cry 3 times. His secondary hearts began pumping battle chemicals into his bloodstream. His vision sharpened, his muscles tensed. "Prepare the devastation fleet," he ordered. "We move immediately." 4 Craxian dreadnoughts altered course. On a world of ice and darkness, the Norvax received the same signal. Their planet orbited a dying star. Temperatures dropped to -200 degrees. They had evolved antifreeze in their blood and skin that could withstand the vacuum of space. They were silent hunters, assassins. Their ships were undetectable. The Norvax Queen rarely involved herself in galactic affairs. Her species preferred isolation, observation. They watched and waited and remembered. But she had once lost a child to raiders, centuries ago. The pain never faded. She spoke one word to her fleet commanders: "Hunt." 8 Norvax stealth destroyers vanished into hyperspace. The Threllian hive mind processed the distress signal through 17 billion individual consciousnesses. They were insects, massive intelligent insects that shared thoughts across their entire species. Their homeworld was toxic to most life. They breathed methane and sweated acid. The hive mind reached consensus in exactly 4 seconds. A child was in danger. A child required protection. This was law. This was purpose. This was everything. 12 Threllian carrier ships began moving. Each ship contained 50,000 warrior drones. Across the galaxy, Deathworld species responded. Some had never communicated with humans. Some had been enemies. Some had no cultural connection to the concept of childhood at all. But they heard that cry, that frequency, that universal signal of innocence in danger. And they moved. Back on the Eternal Whisper, Maya had stopped screaming. The reptilian pirate held her by the collar, dangling her like a trophy. Grax studied the small creature with curiosity. "A human child," he said. "I have heard stories about humans. They are supposed to be dangerous. This one does not look dangerous." Maya stared at him with wet eyes. She was shaking, terrified. But somewhere beneath the fear, something else was building, something she did not understand. "Let me go," she whispered. Grax leaned closer. "What did you say?" "Let me go. My mommy is coming. My daddy is coming. They are going to hurt you." The pirate captain laughed again. He turned to his crew and gestured at the trembling child. "She threatens us. This tiny creature thinks her parents will save her. They do not even know she is here. No one is coming. No one can hear her." But Grax was wrong. Everyone had heard her. Commander Xerath watched the scene with growing horror. He had accessed the ship's external sensors, hidden controls that the pirates had not disabled. What he saw made his translucent skin turn pale. Ships were arriving, not one or two, dozens. Emerging from hyperspace at the edge of the nebula, human ships with their aggressive angular designs, Craxian dreadnoughts that dwarfed everything around them. Shapes that did not register on his sensors at all, which meant Norvax vessels. Threllian carriers humming with the movement of countless warriors. More signals incoming. Deathworld species Xerath had never even heard of. Ships from the Outer Rim, ancient vessels from forgotten colonies, a fleet assembling that had no right to exist. All for one child. Grax's communication officer interrupted his laughter with a panicked shout. "Captain, ships incoming, multiple signatures. I count 47 vessels and more arriving." The pirate leader frowned. "Council patrol?" "Negative. I do not recognize most of these configurations." "Wait, that is a human heavy cruiser, and those are Craxian dreadnoughts, and I am detecting energy signatures I have never seen before." Grax walked to the nearest viewport. The nebula dust made visibility poor, but even through the interference, he could see the lights. Engine flares appearing one after another, a ring of death slowly closing around his position. His confidence wavered for the first time. "Hail them! Find out what they want!" The communication was answered immediately. Captain Marcus Webb appeared on screen. Behind him, the bridge of the Prometheus was filled with crew members preparing for battle. Weapons systems powering up, targeting computers locking on. "You have something that belongs to us," Marcus said. His voice was calm, too calm, the voice of a man who had already decided how this would end. Grax tried to maintain his composure. "I am a free trader. I have broken no council laws." "We are not the council." A second image appeared on the split screen. High Commander Throck of the Craxian Empire. His massive form barely fit within the frame. "Return the child. You have 1 minute to comply." Grax felt real fear for the first time in decades. Two Deathworld species working together. This had never happened in recorded history. Their ancient rivalry was supposed to prevent exactly this kind of cooperation. "The child is my prisoner, my bargaining chip. If you attack, she dies." Marcus Webb smiled. It was not a pleasant expression. "Wrong answer." The Craxian commander leaned forward. "The human said all Deathworld vessels received this alert. Do you know what that means, pirate?" Grax shook his head slowly. "It means every Deathworld species in the galaxy is coming for you. Not some of them. All of them. You have made an enemy of every dangerous civilization in known space. There is no place you can run, no planet you can hide on, no void dark enough to conceal you." More windows opened on Grax's screen. The Norvax Queen. Cold eyes staring from a face of ice. Threllian representatives. Dozens of identical insect faces. Species he did not recognize. Species that should not exist. All waiting. All watching. Maya stopped trembling. She looked up at the screens surrounding her. At the faces of aliens she had never met. Creatures that looked nothing like her. Monsters by any standard definition. But they had come for her. Every single one of them. Grax had built his reputation on violence. 30 years of piracy. Hundreds of successful raids. He had faced council patrol ships and destroyed them. He had fought mercenaries and won. He had even killed a Craxian warrior once. A feat that earned him respect among criminal circles throughout the galaxy. None of that mattered now. His sensors showed 53 vessels and counting. The numbers kept climbing. Every minute brought new arrivals. Ships of designs he had never studied. Weapons systems that did not exist in any database. Technology that seemed impossible. "Captain," his navigator whispered, "what do we do?" Grax had no answer. His 3 ships carried a combined crew of 80 pirates. Good fighters, experienced killers. Against a single patrol vessel, they would have overwhelming advantage. Against this fleet, they were insects facing a forest fire. He looked at Maya. The human child had stopped crying. She sat on a cargo container, legs dangling, watching everything with strange calm. Her fear had transformed into something else. Patience. She knew help was coming. She just had to wait. "Contact the human ship again," Grax ordered. "Tell them I wish to negotiate." Captain Marcus Webb accepted the communication with obvious reluctance. "You have nothing to negotiate with. I have the child. Harm my ships and she dies." Marcus leaned back in his chair. "Let me explain something to you. I have been a soldier for 20 years. I have seen things that would break your mind. I have fought enemies that make you look like a child playing pretend. And in all that time, I have learned one truth about Deathworld species." He paused, letting the silence build. "We protect our young. All of us. Without exception. Without compromise. Without mercy for those who threaten them. You think that child is your shield. You are wrong. She is your death sentence." Grax's hand moved toward his weapon. "I will kill her myself before I let you take her." A new voice interrupted. High Commander Throck. "Then you will die screaming. My ships carry interrogation specialists who have spent centuries perfecting the art of keeping subjects alive during questioning. You will beg for death. It will not come, not for years. Not until we have extracted every piece of information from your genetic memory. Not until we have found every associate, every ally, every family member you have ever known. They will all share your fate." The Norvax Queen spoke next. Her voice was cold, utterly devoid of emotion. "My hunters have already boarded your rearmost vessel. Your crew there is dead. They did not see us coming. They did not hear us. They simply stopped existing. This is what awaits you." Grax spun toward his communication officer. "Confirm. Check the status of the Blade Runner." Silence. No response from his second ship. The console showed all systems offline. Crew life signs, 0. The reptilian pirate holding Maya dropped her in shock. She landed on her feet, stumbled, but did not fall. She walked slowly toward Commander Zyrith and the other Valaxian prisoners, putting distance between herself and her captors. "They are ghosts," one of Grax's crew members whispered. "The Norvax. They walk through walls. They kill without sound." "Shut up," Grax roared. "They are just soldiers. They bleed like anyone else." A Threllian representative appeared on screen. Countless identical voices speaking in perfect unison. "We have surrounded your tertiary vessel. 600 warriors await my command. When I give the order, they will breach every airlock simultaneously. Your crew will face them in close combat. Have you ever fought Threllian warriors, pirate? We do not use weapons. We use ourselves. Our claws can cut through ship hull plating. Our acid can dissolve your armor in seconds. And we feel no pain, no fear, no hesitation. Grax watched his tactical display. The Threllian carrier was indeed surrounding his third ship, the Savage Wind. Thousands of smaller signatures drifting around it. Waiting, patient, he was trapped. 3 ships reduced to 1, 2 crews dead or about to die, and the fleet around him continued growing. 60 vessels now, then 70, each arrival bringing new weapons, new capabilities, new ways to make him suffer. "What do you want?" His voice cracked. "I will release the child. I will surrender. Just let my crew live." Marcus Webb shook his head slowly. "You misunderstand. This is not a negotiation. This is a lesson. For every pirate watching, for every criminal who might think about targeting the innocent, for every predator in this galaxy who believes they can harm children without consequence." The Craxian commander stepped forward in his frame. "You will release the child. Your crew will surrender, and then we will decide your fate. Those are your options. Comply, or we will demonstrate exactly why Deathworld species are feared." "And if I refuse?" Every screen went dark simultaneously. For 3 seconds, Grax stood in silence, wondering if they had cut communications. Then the screens reactivated, showing a single image. His third ship, the Savage Wind, tearing apart from the inside. Threllian warriors flooding every corridor, his crew firing weapons that did nothing against armored insect bodies, acid spraying, claws rending, screams that cut off suddenly. The massacre lasted 47 seconds. "That was your final warning," the Threllian hive mind announced. "The child! Now!" Grax dropped his weapon. His remaining crew followed his example. Whatever fight they had possessed evaporated in the face of such overwhelming force. "Take her! Take anything you want, just end this!" Marcus Webb nodded to someone off-screen. Moments later, transporter beams activated throughout the captured Valaxian vessel. Human soldiers materialized in the cargo hold. Elite special forces in powered armor. Weapons trained on every pirate. Sergeant Elena Rodriguez was first through the teleportation field. She scanned the room, identified threats, and moved directly toward Maya. The little girl looked up at the armored figure approaching her. The helmet retracted, revealing a woman's face, hard features softened by gentle eyes. "Maya, I am Sergeant Rodriguez. Your parents sent me to bring you home." Maya's composure finally broke. She launched herself at the soldier, wrapping small arms around armored legs. The crying started again, not the desperate terror of before. Relief. Pure, overwhelming relief. Elena picked her up carefully. The armor's servos whirred as she cradled the child against her chest. "I've got her," she announced into her communicator. "Primary objective secured." Cheers erupted across multiple channels. Human ships, Craxian vessels. Even the Norvax acknowledged the news with something approaching satisfaction. The child was safe. The mission was successful, but they were not finished. High Commander Throck addressed the captured pirates directly. "You were given a choice, surrender and face judgment. Your captain chose wisely. Now we must decide what to do with you." Grax knelt among his remaining crew. 18 pirates from his original force of 80. The others were dead, killed by creatures they never saw coming. "I have information," he said desperately. "Safe houses, smuggling routes, other pirate captains. I can give you everything." "We already have that information," the Norvax Queen responded. "Our intelligence network is extensive. You have nothing we need." Marcus Webb stepped in. "Standard council law would require a trial, evidence presentation, legal proceedings. But we are not operating under council authority." Commander Zyrith raised a trembling hand. The Valaxian captain had watched everything in stunned silence. Now he spoke. "What will happen to them?" The human captain considered the question. "What would you have us do? These are the beings who threatened your crew. Who would have done unspeakable things to civilians? Who held a child hostage?" Zeereth looked at his crew. 17 traumatized souls who had nearly experienced horrors beyond imagination. He looked at Maya, still clinging to Sergeant Rodriguez. He looked at the pirates who had caused all this suffering. "Council law exists for a reason," he said quietly. "Even criminals deserve fair treatment, a trial, proper judgment." The Deathworld commanders exchanged glances across their communication screens. This was the difference between them and Garden World species. The Valaxians still believed in mercy, still held to principles even when facing monsters. "Very well," Marcus agreed. "We will deliver them to the Council for trial. But understand this, Commander Zeereth. If any of them escape justice, if any of them ever threatens innocent lives again, we will find them, and there will be no trial, no lawyers, no mercy. That is our law." The pirate prisoners were transported to human ships, separated, secured. Grax found himself alone in a cell barely large enough to stand. The walls were reinforced. The door had no visible locking mechanism. There was no window, no light except a dim glow from the ceiling. Hours passed, maybe days. Time lost meaning in the darkness. Eventually, the door opened. A human entered, not a soldier. A woman in civilian clothes, gray hair, kind face. She carried a tablet and a small recording device. "My name is Dr. Sarah Chen," she said. "I am here to conduct your psychological evaluation before trial." Grax stared at her. "You are not afraid of me." "Should I be? I have killed hundreds, tortured dozens. I am a monster by any definition." Dr. Chen sat on the small bench opposite his restraint chair. "And yet here you are, helpless, defeated, all because you took one little girl." "I did not know. How could I have known? Pirates have taken children before, ransomed them, sold them. The galaxy is cruel. No one ever responded like this." "Because those children were not ours." The simplicity of the statement struck Grax like a physical blow. Not some complex strategy, not political maneuvering, not military calculation. Just the basic, fundamental truth of Deathworld psychology. They protected their own, without limit, without compromise. "The Craxians hate humans," Grax said. "Everyone knows this. You fought a war. You killed each other. How did they come to help you?" Dr. Chen smiled slightly. "Because some things matter more than old grudges. The protection of children is written into their DNA. When they heard Maya's cry, they did not think about politics or history. They thought about their own young, their own sacred duty. Every Deathworld species has this instinct in some form. It is what made us dangerous enough to survive our homeworlds." "And the others? The Norvax? The Threllians? I have never even seen those species before." "Exactly. They rarely interact with galactic society. They have no alliance with humanity, no treaty, no shared history. But they answered anyway. Because across the galaxy, across species that evolved on completely different worlds, one thing remains constant. Innocence must be protected." Grax leaned back in his chair. His life of violence had taught him many lessons, but this was something new, something he had never considered. Garden World species were weak because they had never faced true danger. They evolved in safety, comfort. They developed civilizations based on cooperation and peace because they never needed anything else. Deathworld species were different. They came from environments that actively tried to kill them. Every day was a battle. Every moment brought new threats. In such conditions, the protection of offspring became paramount. A species that did not fiercely protect its young would not survive. This instinct did not fade when they achieved civilization. It intensified. It became cultural, religious, legal, biological imperative transformed into unshakable conviction. You will face trial, Dr. Chen continued. The council will judge you according to their laws. I suspect you will receive a lengthy sentence, perhaps life imprisonment, but you should know that others have argued for different outcomes. Death? Worse. High Commander Throck proposed genetic termination. Your entire family line erased, every descendant, every ancestor, complete removal from biological existence. It is how his species handles crimes against children. Grax felt cold. Genetic termination was legendary among Craxians, the most severe punishment possible, reserved only for those who harmed the young. Why was he overruled? Because Maya asked us to show mercy. The pirate captain sat in stunned silence. The child he had threatened, the girl he had held hostage, she had spoken for him? She is 5 years old, Dr. Chen explained. She does not understand the full scope of what almost happened to her, but she understood that you were afraid at the end. She saw you surrender. She told Captain Webb that being mean to scared people was wrong. A strange sound escaped Grax's throat, something between a laugh and a sob. Saved by the compassion of a child he would have happily sold into slavery. What happens now? Now you wait. The trial will begin when we reach council space. Until then, you have time to think about your choices, your life, the path that brought you here. She stood and gathered her equipment. I hope you use that time wisely. The door closed behind her, leaving Grax alone in the darkness. Across the fleet, similar conversations were happening. Pirates confronting the consequences of their actions. Criminals realizing that they had made enemies of every dangerous species in the galaxy, not through political missteps or territorial disputes, through something far simpler. They had made a child cry, and the Deathworlders had answered. The Galactic Council chambers had never been this crowded. Representatives from 300 species filled the enormous auditorium. Holographic projections allowed millions more to witness the proceedings from distant worlds. Every news network in known space carried the broadcast. Ambassador Veltris of the Council Presidium stood at the central podium. His species had governed galactic affairs for 10,000 years. They were ancient, wise, believed themselves above the petty concerns of younger civilizations. Now they faced something unprecedented. The events of the Kethros Nebula incident have raised serious questions about galactic security, Veltris announced. A fleet of 73 vessels assembled without council authorization operated in our space. They destroyed ships, killed individuals, conducted military operations without oversight. This cannot be allowed to continue. A murmur rippled through the audience. Representatives from Garden Worlds nodded in agreement. Surely there must be consequences for such blatant disregard of established protocol. Captain Marcus Webb stood among the accused. Beside him were representatives from every Deathworld species that had participated in the rescue. High Commander Throck of the Craxians, silent observers from the Norvax, the collective presence of the Threllian hive mind, and dozens of others. How do you answer these charges? Veltris demanded. Marcus stepped forward. A child was in danger. We responded. You circumvented legal channels. You ignored distress protocols. You assembled a military force without proper authorization. With respect, Ambassador, proper channels would have taken weeks. The child might have been dead or sold within hours. We did not have time for bureaucracy. Throck added his voice, deeper, resonant. My species does not recognize council authority over the protection of young. Our laws predate your civilization by millennia. We answered a universal call. We will do so again whenever necessary. The Threllian representative spoke with multiple voices in perfect harmony. The hive mind achieved consensus in 4 seconds. 17 billion individuals agreed without dissent. Innocence required protection. We protected it. This is purpose. Ambassador Veltris raised a hand for silence. You speak of purpose and duty, but your actions destabilized an entire region. Pirates who might have surrendered peacefully were slaughtered. Ships were destroyed without warning. This was not justice. This was vigilantism. A new voice echoed through the chamber, small, uncertain, but somehow carrying to every corner of the massive space. They saved me. Maya stood at the entrance, holding her mother's hand. Her father walked beside them. The family had traveled across half the galaxy to be present for this hearing. Council protocol demanded their testimony. The crowd fell silent. Every eye turned toward the tiny figure walking toward the central platform. Representatives who had prepared lengthy arguments found themselves unable to speak. Critics who had demanded punishment suddenly reconsidered their positions. Maya's mother, Dr. Emily Hayes, lifted her daughter onto a speaking platform. The girl looked around at the thousands of faces, aliens of every shape and size, creatures from worlds she could not imagine, all watching her. She was not afraid. The bad men took me, Maya said simply. I was scared. I cried for help, and they came. She pointed at Marcus, at Throck, at the Threlian representatives. All of them. They came from far away to help me. My teacher says that is what heroes do. Ambassador Veltris leaned forward. Child, do you understand that these beings killed people, that their actions caused deaths? Maya nodded slowly. The bad men hurt people too. Commander Zyrith told me what they wanted to do. They were going to hurt everyone on the ship. The helpers stopped them. But should they have acted without permission, without following the rules? The girl considered this question with surprising seriousness. Sometimes rules take too long. When my friend Timmy fell in the river, his dad did not wait for permission to jump in. He just saved him. That is what you do when someone needs help. The simplicity of her logic silenced the chamber. Dr. Emily Hayes spoke next. Ambassador, I am a xenobiologist. I have spent my career studying the evolution of social behaviors across species. What happened at Kethros Nebula was not vigilantism. It was something far older, a biological imperative shared by every species that evolved in hostile environments. She activated a holographic display showing comparative data. On Earth, humans developed protective instincts toward children that override rational thought. Parents have lifted impossible weights to save trapped children. Strangers have run into burning buildings for infants they never met. This behavior exists because species without it did not survive our planet. The display shifted to show Craxian evolution. The Craxians evolved similar responses. Their homeworld had predators that specifically targeted young due to their softer armor. Adults who did not violently defend offspring lost them. Over millions of years, this created genetic programming that cannot be ignored. More species appeared in the presentation. Norvax, Threlians, others. Each with their own evolutionary pressures, each developing the same fundamental response: protect the young at any cost. The cry of a child in distress triggers neurological responses that bypass higher reasoning, Dr. Hayes continued. Every Deathworld species that heard Maya's signal experienced the same cascade of reactions: elevated aggression, increased pain tolerance, suppression of fear, enhanced spatial awareness. These are not choices, these are survival mechanisms encoded over billions of years. Ambassador Veltris listened with growing understanding. You are suggesting that these beings had no control over their response. I am suggesting that asking them to ignore a child's cry is like asking you to stop breathing. Theoretically possible, practically impossible. The biological drive is too strong. High Commander Throck stepped forward again. His massive frame cast shadows across the entire platform. Ambassador, My species has many traditions, many laws, many cultural requirements, but one stands above all others. One rule that has never been broken in our recorded history. Children must be protected, not human children, not Craxian children, all children, everywhere, without exception. He turned to face the broader audience, thousands of Garden World representatives who had never experienced true danger, never felt the primal urge to defend offspring at any cost. You evolved in safety. Your worlds were kind. Your ecosystems were gentle. You never had to fight for survival. We respect this. We envy this, in some ways. But you cannot understand what drives us because you never faced extinction. You never watched predators drag away your young while you were powerless to stop them. The Norvax queen spoke from her place among the observers. Her voice carried the weight of millennia. Long ago, before my species achieved civilization, raiders came to our world. They took our eggs, millions of them, an entire generation stolen while we hid in caves, too weak to fight back. That memory lives in our genetic code. Every Norvax feels it. Every generation inherits the trauma. She paused, allowing her words to sink in. When I heard the human child's cry, I did not think. I did not calculate political consequences. I simply remembered the stolen eggs, and I knew that this time we were strong enough to fight back. Ambassador Veltris sat in silence for a long moment. The weight of the testimony pressed upon him. Everything he believed about galactic governance, about proper procedure and diplomatic channels, seemed suddenly insufficient. "What would you have us do?" he finally asked. "Acknowledge that certain species operate outside our laws? Accept that when children are threatened, some civilizations will respond with overwhelming force regardless of our protocols," Marcus Webb answered. "We would have you understand, not accept or condone, just understand. When you build your policies, when you establish your trade routes and patrol schedules, factor this into your calculations. Deathworld species will always prioritize the protection of young. It is not a choice. It is who we are." The council debated for 3 days. Diplomats argued. Legal experts analyzed precedent. Politicians calculated advantages. In the end, they reached a compromise that satisfied no one and everyone. The Kethros Nebula incident would be officially classified as a humanitarian intervention rather than unauthorized military action. The Deathworld fleet would face no formal penalties. However, new protocols would be established for future scenarios. Emergency channels that allowed rapid communication between Council patrol forces and Deathworld militaries. Joint training exercises to improve coordination. Cultural exchange programs to help Garden World species understand their more aggressive neighbors. Most importantly, the Council acknowledged a new reality. The galaxy was not governed solely by treaties and trade agreements. Biological imperatives existed that transcended politics. Species that had evolved in hell would always respond differently than those that had developed in paradise. Maya returned home with her parents. Colony 7 welcomed her as a minor celebrity. News networks requested interviews. Educational programs featured her story. She became a symbol of something larger than herself. But Maya did not care about fame or symbolism. She was 5 years old. She wanted to play with her friends, eat ice cream, and forget about the bad men who had scared her. Months passed. The story faded from headlines. Other crises demanded attention. The galaxy continued spinning. Then something unexpected happened. A Valaxian trading vessel encountered engine trouble near the outer rim. Standard mechanical failure. Not dangerous. But as the crew worked on repairs, they noticed something strange. Ships were approaching, not one or two, dozens. Deathworld vessels from multiple species, human patrol craft, a Craxian escort frigate that had been in the area, even a Norvax scout that should not have been visible at all. Commander Zerith, now captain of his own ship, received their communications with confusion. This is the free trader's hope. We have minor engine trouble. We do not require military assistance. Captain Webb's face appeared on his screen. The human looked older than Xyrith remembered. More gray in his hair, but the same steady eyes. We know. We received your distress signal and wanted to make sure you were safe. A signal? We transmitted nothing beyond a standard maintenance notification. Marcus smiled slightly. Your ship's computer automatically pinged our networks when your shields dropped below standard levels. Nothing dramatic. Just a precaution. Xyrith stared at the fleet surrounding his small trading vessel. Warships that had no business being anywhere near his position. Military forces from species that supposedly had no interest in Valaxian affairs. You came all this way because our shields flickered? We came because of what happened at Kethros. After that day, Deathworld intelligence services began monitoring Valaxian ships more closely. Not to spy. To protect. Your species saved a human child. You showed mercy when others demanded blood. We do not forget such things. High Commander Throck appeared in a secondary window. His ship loomed in the background, a mountain of metal and weapons systems. Additionally, your testimony prevented genetic termination for the pirate captain. While we disagreed with that decision, we respected it. You demonstrated principles that my species admires. Honor requires us to repay such debts. The Norvax Queen's voice crackled through the communication system. No visual, just cold words from empty space. We observe. We remember. Your commander showed courage when facing death. This earned our interest. We have been watching your shipping lanes since that day, eliminating threats before they reach you. Xyrith felt a chill run through his translucent form. The Norvax had been secretly protecting Valaxian trade routes for months. How many pirates had vanished without explanation? How many potential attacks had been prevented before anyone knew they were coming? We are not Deathworlders, Xyrith said softly. We are peaceful, gentle. We do not fight. We know, Marcus replied. That is why we fight for you. That is what happened after Maya. The Deathworld species realized something. We had spent so long competing with each other, proving who was strongest, who was most dangerous. We forgot that strength has a purpose, protection, not of ourselves, of those who cannot protect themselves. The fleet remained until repairs were complete. Then, without ceremony, they dispersed back to their normal duties. Deathworld vessels returning to their assigned sectors, watchful eyes scanning the darkness for any threat to those they had chosen to guard. Xyrith continued his journey to the colony worlds. His cargo hold was full of medical supplies destined for beings he would never meet. Standard trade run. Nothing special. But as his ship entered hyperspace, he found himself thinking about the little girl who had changed everything. Maya Hayes, 5 years old, too young to understand galactic politics or evolutionary psychology or the complex relationships between Deathworld species. She had simply cried for help. And the most dangerous civilizations in the galaxy had answered, not because of treaties, not because of obligations, not because of anything they could explain in rational terms, because protecting the innocent was what they were built for. What billions of years of brutal evolution had programmed into their very cells. And now that they remembered this truth, nothing in the galaxy would ever be quite the same. The cry that made Deathworlders send their deadliest ships was not just about one child. It was about remembering who they were meant to be.